Hello, everyone. Welcome to Equity and Back2's first live stream protest, or rather, what you're getting here is the accompanying program for the protest that is now assembling in central London, in Cambridge Circus, if you're familiar, outside the theatre that houses, or used to house until a few months ago, the Harry Potter plays. Equity organised, as I said, this protest together with our sibling union Back2, and it will be soonish, be on its way towards Parliament Square to advocate for the 4 pillars devised by Equity that our industry needs to survive until it's safe for us to reopen and go back to doing what we love and know how to do. You'll be hearing a lot about these 4 pillars, so I won't get into them too much, but suffice it to say that they cover all the areas that need support while the pandemic is still raging on. The support that we as freelancers, as individuals need, the support the industry needs to reopen safely, the protection of the industry infrastructure, and finally, ensuring that equality is at the core of the reopening plan, in order not to backslide on the progress that had been achieved for members from marginalized backgrounds and who have been more severely affected by COVID-19 economically as well, and you'll be hearing a lot about that. I should introduce myself. My name is Giovanni Bien, and I'm the chair of Equity's LGBT+ committee. Maybe, if you're like me, you'd like to be in central London marching, not to put down what we've put on, but it'd be nice to be in central London, but you can't, either because you're not in London or because you just don't feel comfortable joining a march. But we want you to be involved, so that's why we've put on a pretty cool lineup, I think, of speakers for you, and my job will just be to guide you through it. There will be live images from the march, by the way, if it all works out. That's the plan. It's all very new. It's the first time we've done this, so bear with us. We don't know how it's going to turn out. I shouldn't put it down. It's going to work. It's going to be fine. Our speakers here are all Equity members. They're here as Equity members. They're also here as activists, but also just as people working in our industry who are worried about the future of our industry, but also they want to speak out and they want to advocate for us and they want to listen. They cover the breadth of our membership in terms of profession, location. We've got members covering the entirety of the UK and background. Before I introduce you to our first speaker, I want to remind you, and I'll do so repeatedly throughout the live stream. You'll get sick of me, but I don't care. No, I do, a little bit. What I want to say is that we want to hear from you. We want to hear from as broad an experience as possible. You can send us your comments, and we'll share as many of those as we can. You can tweet us, and please use the hashtag #PantoParade, #PantoParade. You can also comment on our Facebook page and underneath the YouTube stream you're watching us on right now. I think that's all for now, and I'd like to introduce you to our first speaker. Our first speaker is an actress of considerable experience and talent, just my opinion, shared by many though. This actor, already said it's an actress, already gave one thing away, is Scottish, and also a few months ago was voted again as our president. It was her first term and now her second term as president. And if all goes according to plan, she'll be joining us from Cambridge Circus, from central London, live. And I think most of you know who it is, but I should say the name. It is Maureen. Joining us from Cambridge Circus. Maureen, can you? Yes, there we are. Perfect. Live feed from the march. Hi.
So I hope you can hear me above Stephen Spence, who is in his element because he's got a megaphone and he's telling us all what to do. Hello, everybody. I'm sorry. I know for very good reasons, many of you can't be here today. I've come down from Scotland. I know some of you know that my father was a great pantomime day. And he died not that long ago in July, and we've been going through all the wonderful photographs of his career and the fabulous outfits. And we've got the most wonderful group of dames with us here today. You'll see much more of them later. They look amazing, and they're here to support us. The meat of the day, of course, will come later with the speeches when we get to Parliament Square. But this is incredibly important, as you all know. Our industry, as you all know, has been entirely devastated by this coronavirus. And the very recent statement by our Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, telling us all to basically go away and find another job because our industry was not viable is such a kick in the teeth, so depressing. We're on our knees anyway, we're struggling to cope. We need more support. 40% of our members, as you know, probably many of you, being activists yourself, have not been helped by the government at all. Not at all. This is an industry which not only brings in, masses of money. I believe Sonia Friedman very recently, West End producers, said in a newspaper article that in London alone, in the West End, it brings 5 billion quid into the London economy alone. That's one city. So this is really important. And it's not just to do with the kudos that UK-wide live performance brings in. The money is to do with the kudos as well. It's to do with the fact that people look to the UK and go, that's where the best theatre and live performance is happening. And people in government and in the Chancellor's office have got to sit up and recognise that. So that's why we're here. That's why we're marching. And thank you so much for being wherever you are in the UK, maybe worldwide, and as it were, digitally marching with us. It's much appreciated, and there's much more to come. So I will leave you now to the glories of the day. Bye for now.
Thank you, Maureen. I got excited there seeing Maureen, and I didn't introduce her properly. That was Maureen Beattie. I don't think it needs specifying, but I think it's good to do so. Moving on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Amy Wildgoose. She's a freelance stage manager based in Wales, and she will talk about the general experience of Welsh and Wales-based theatre workers throughout the pandemic and the differences in funding that Welsh Government and the Arts Council there have provided. And there are differences. Over to you, Amy.
Hello, thank you so much. As Giovanni said, thanks. I'm Amy Wildgoose. I'm a freelance stage manager based in Cardiff. I'm an equity member, part of the Wales Stage Management Network, and a board director for the Stage Management Association. Firstly, thank you so much to Equity and Bectu for hosting this unique event. I can't wait to see all the images of live in central London later on. Like the rest of the theatre industry in the UK, most of the workforce in Wales are freelance. There are only a couple of companies in Wales who employ a full-time stage management team, so there are no more than a handful of stage managers currently benefiting from the furlough scheme in Wales. In terms of the bigger picture of freelancers in Wales, the Wales Freelance Task Force, which is part of the National Fuel Theatre Task Force, picture of the landscape of Welsh theatre and its participating freelancers during the pandemic. A concerning 26.5% of respondents said they currently do not have enough money to live on, and 46% of those did not qualify for the SEISS grant. A third of respondents don't even know whether they'll stay or leave in the industry, and a whopping 70% do not feel included in planning for the future of creative sector in Wales. And this includes people who are deaf and disabled workers, people who are black or non-black people of colour, those with caring responsibilities, recent graduates and early career workers. Anecdotally, respondents to the Wales Freelance Survey said they felt on a cliff edge and they had no safety net for the future. A member I spoke to who had lowered income in a previous tax year due to maternity leave meant that her SEISS grant was hugely affected by this, receiving almost £1,000 less in her first grant than she would have done if her year of maternity leave was discounted. She put in a request asking them to review this and received a reply saying that taking maternity leave didn't affect her grant amount, when it clearly did. This is clear and unacceptable discrimination by the scheme. It paints quite a bleak picture of how most freelancers in Wales are feeling at the moment, and a very worrying image of landscape of Welsh theatre as we come out of the other end. In April, the Arts Resilience Fund was made available to apply for. This was available for individuals and organisations, but it was more for funding direct projects than income relief. Then, in July, as part of the announcement of the 1.57 billion by DCMS, the Welsh Government received a portion of that. Welsh Government put 53 million of that towards a fund to help Wales culture sector deal with the impact of COVID, called the Culture Recovery Fund. Arts Council Wales was responsible for 27.5 million to support theatres and galleries, and the rest was administered by the Welsh Government. Welsh Government have since listened to the voices of the creative unions and freelancers and put aside 7 million to put in place a Freelancers Fund. There are grants of £2,500 each available, and applications open for these grants on the 5th of October for the first wave of applicants. It targets firstly those individuals who have received no support to date, but also available to those who have received a little bit. Vitally, it recognises the portfolio careers that freelancers have, in that it's a mix of both PAYE and self-employed earnings, and doesn't set a limit on either of them. And it accommodates the newly self-employed as it seeks only a UTR reference number. Applicants will also be asked to sign up to an optional Freelancers Pledge for individuals, and this is being developed with individual freelancers contributing who will be paid for their time, as well as the unions. There's also a culture contract being developed for organisations, which includes a list of items to subscribe to, including but not limited to board diversity, inclusion, climate resilience and fair work. This is really important to try and encourage meaningful and transformational change within the sector. Support and training will be available to freelancers who want to participate in this, and it's the first initiative of its kind in the UK. The Future Generations Commissioner also called for a creative basic income pilot for theatre and performance freelancers in Wales, called the Universal Basic Income. Consultation about this is ongoing with Arts Council Wales, Equity Wales, BEC2 and Welsh Government, and this is a world-leading scheme. In terms of emotional and mental health support for stage management affected in Wales, via my involvement with the Stage Management Association, I've been hosting weekly meetings for the Wales Stage Management Network. These are just weekly check-in sessions to provide a platform for the stage management community in Wales to support each other. Events have been hosted for stage managers in Scotland also, and by the Friends of the Stage Management Association. Cult Cymru, which is a collective of creative unions, have also been working hard to provide training, advice and support to those in the industry in Wales. Personally, I was due to company manage a commercial tour, which was due to start in early lockdown, since been rescheduled. I'm one of the lucky ones. I qualified for the SEISS grants and I've had alternative theatre work almost throughout the pandemic. I worked for National Theatre Wales, who have been fantastically supportive in providing work and creative opportunities for a whole host of different theatre workers throughout the major lockdown period. This, at the very least, provide a small creative valve and some hope that work was still being made. I know many other companies have been working in a similar way in Wales, providing creative opportunities and vital work. A quarter of the respondents to the earlier mentioned survey reported working for an arts portfolio Wales company during the pandemic. Going forward, the limitations that the Welsh Government still have in place make it very difficult for any live theatre to go ahead, where in England this is starting to emerge. Lots of South Wales is currently in local lockdown, and parts of North Wales go into local lockdown tomorrow evening, which is another hugely limiting factor. It's over 2/3 of the country's population. Although myself and other members in Wales are hugely grateful, and we are grateful for the extra measures that Welsh Government and Arts Council Wales have put in place to support the arts in Wales, which includes some thought about how we come back incorporating vital cultural changes to the industry, I still can't help but feel that the industry as a whole is being left to fester when we see the efforts going into reviving other industries. The fact that so many people in Wales have continued to make vital and inspiring work throughout lockdown under such limiting conditions, and as the pandemic continues to wage war on our industry, it gives me hope that there's enough fire in people's bellies to come back not only as soon as we can, but to come back much improved. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thanks so much, Giovanni.
Thank you, Amy. Before we move to our next speaker, I'd like to remind you that you can let us know how you've been affected. Amy gave us an account of how things were dealt with in Wales. She also gave us vital data on the kind of support our members have received in Wales, but also the conditions they find themselves in and how their professional lives have been affected. This data is vital and we need it. We need to know how you've been affected and what you think is needed. You can let us know that by responding to our 4-pillar survey, if you haven't done so yet. If you go to equity.org.uk/4-pillar plan, you will get, the page will lead you to the survey. I've filled it in. It doesn't take long, and it gives you an opportunity to really let us know what you think is needed for a safe reopening and for the protection of the industry. So after the stream, of course, not now, do go to our website and fill it in. Now over to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Dawn Hope, an African Caribbean actor and activist, and she will be speaking about the devastation that the lack of financial support has brought to so many in our industry, especially our minority artists and practitioners. Over to you, Dawn.
Hi, everyone. Wow, what a time. You know, reflecting back, I have to say, yes, now I am an equity counsellor. I'm in my second term, and I speak for all the self-identified different cultures within our industry, all the actors and the practitioners in general, that we were all WhatsApping each other because we knew instantly we would fall at the first hurdle. And I had to go back and think, because I was a child actor in the industry from the age of 7, but 10 for filming and things. And I, in this pandemic, I started to realize the last time I knew a crisis within the industry was when it became the 3-day week. And I was in the West End as a babe, really, you know, the babe in the company, the smallest, the youngest. And the devastation there, I mean, I was living at home and earning a salary, and I could contribute money to my parents. But there were actors, singers, comedians, dancers who had families, who had mortgages. And suddenly it's become a full circle. Here we are again. Now, in this time, yes, of course, what Equity has amazingly done has fought very hard with the practitioners on behalf of our practitioners up and down the length of the country to be afforded equity and equitable chance to come on board and express our creativity and be given those options and those opportunities. And that has been fantastic. However, the narrative from this government stated quite quickly, and we know what narratives do. When a narrative says only the Black and minority people are dying from this COVID, well, that was an absolute lie, because I tell you that it's because when everybody went on the march, I don't see any dead bodies left in London and any of our major cities. So that was a narrative that could scare practitioners into thinking, well, maybe all of our opportunities will be rowed back. And it also would go into the mind of the engagers who would hire us up and down the length of the country. And I'm somebody who has worked from Northern Ireland to Cork to Cardiff to Liverpool to Coventry to Belfast to Norwich, Glasgow. I have worked everywhere, and I've had the privilege of doing productions that work everywhere. So I'm speaking to all of us. We all feel this up and down the length of the country, length and breadth of the country. But what we have to really ask this government, yes, you want to protect the crown jewels, but the same money from the minorities, taxes, which has gone to the Arts Council of England, we're going to have to monitor what the Art Council of England will do, because not only will they take our tax dollars, our pound coins, and give it to those who always get a grant from them. So it's not going to be afforded us. And this is what we're very much aware of. This is what the union is aware of. And we're saying, really, to this government, how dare you take our money and call us irrelevant, that we're not vital to this economy, which we have put in, as has been said, £5 billion just in London alone, in what the theatre creates. You just have to understand that for we minorities, we feel as if we've been left behind. Not only are we artists, but we're also carers, because we hold our family members quite close. So not only is the government not having to pay for caring needs packages for our loved ones, because we do that, we also slip into PAYE to supplement our theatrical or television contract. So we really want to say, you have to understand that you cannot let what has been advanced to us now be just totally removed, because the mental health condition that we are trying to manage within ourselves, it's shocking. It's shocking that there is no care. There were so many people that came to me on lockdown, and thank goodness that our union was able to give small grants through the Benevolent Fund. But that shouldn't have to be the only place that they can come to. And we're really saying that the opportunity that needs to be afforded us for retraining in this time, because who knows how long this length of string is. So we're really saying, please, to this government, to Rishi Sunak, to the DCMI, you've got to understand, you can't just pick us up and put us down when you need us. If there was one day in this country where no radio, no television, no theatre, no cinema, no music, no announcements, even on the trains, in lifts, if they were all gone, you would hear the silence of all our energy that you have put a pause on. And we're saying to you, you've got to understand this is a crisis that you have seen as a fluffy piece of work. 115 billion pounds into the coffers. You must be fretting as to how you're going to get that money back. But at the moment, you just seem to think that it's we'll deal with it later. When you're ready to deal with it, most of us will have to leave this industry, and most of us are working class people. So we're not going to be able to have some magic tree that brings us straight back from where we were. We will have to we'll have to step outside of it, and that's what's really happening. I had a dream at the age of 5 to do this. I'm now 54 years into the industry, still working at the top of my game. Where are the next generations of young dawns? Where are they? They're in schools now. You've opened the schools. They will be learning English. They'll be reading Shakespeare. They'll be reading all kinds of amazing things, and they'll have no outlet because their parents won't be able to afford for them to come in, and you have told their parents right now that they are not viable. So you are deciding that we minorities are not allowed to partake in cultural creativity because we're not viable and we're working class, and our parents are still putting monies in your tax pot to make it equitable for everybody. Please think about our 5 pillars. Our 5 pillars, and really understand we're crying out for everybody to be included. The millions that fell through this gap. Where is your humanity? That's what I want to leave here. Where is their humanity? And remember, we know you profess Black Lives Matter. But I also say Black Lives Matter in a political black as well, because everybody's included in this diabolical sweeping away of the creative, artistic community, the length and breadth of this country. I hope this makes some sense to you all. I hope you can hear yourselves when I'm speaking to you. But we're standing shoulder to shoulder with you. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dawn. That got to me. That was, I think, a really stark reminder of the contribution that our industry makes to society at large, not just economic, but also the human cost of what's been happening, and how some of what is being lost may not be recovered, and that's why it needs to be protected. Sorry, I got my soapbox there. It's not my job, but that got to me. You are still more than welcome, in fact, encouraged to share your thoughts with you. #PantherParade on Twitter, or your comments on YouTube. I'll be reading out some tweets after our next speaker. So make sure there are some for me to read. There are already some. Our next speaker is Stephen Dix. He's a stage manager, and he spent most of his career in Northern Ireland. Over to you, Stephen.
Thank you very much. Yes, my name is Stephen Dix. I am a full-time stage manager for the Lyric Theatre in Belfast. As you can probably tell, I am not originally from Northern Ireland, but I am here to represent those of us who work in the arts in Northern Ireland. I grew up in Oxfordshire, but I've spent most of my adult life in Belfast. Northern Ireland is a very unique place. There have been issues here over the years that has challenged individuals, organisations, and government institutions, but this country has never stopped producing theatre. Sadly, right now, things have stopped. We, by law, as 4 nations, have been ordered to stop producing theatre. We, as a community of creatives, have been shut down. It was concerning that we had to wait so long to see where £33 million that was allocated to the arts in Northern Ireland is going. We are still waiting. We have institutions like the Lyric, where I've worked for nearly 8 years, and other companies, smaller companies, and freelance workers who are just as important to our industry. They also need to know where this money is going. These new measures, after furlough and the freelance equivalent end, these measures we are being offered are wholly wrong. They don't work. You, the British government, are killing off thousands of people's livings. The measures put in place, Chancellor, end careers. I know you said that you only want to keep viable jobs, but Chancellor, the West End, regional theatres and smaller theatre companies across the whole 4 nations have been alive and kicking for years. Let us open and we'll be alive and kicking again. It concerns me that our industry, our jobs, are being deemed as non-viable. Our industry is not non-viable. We are shut down by our governments. We did not make this choice. I was on a plane not that long ago, and I can't believe how 100 people could be sitting in the same tin can as me, and the government's belief is a small space with air recirculated is better than a large auditorium. Please, how does this make scientific sense? I need to plead to you, to the Northern Irish Executive, Prime Minister, Chancellor, the government, and all MPs, please help. We are drowning. We are desperate for a lifeguard. Please be our lifeguard. Our heads are just above water, and we're about to take our last breath. Please save us. Otherwise, we will be under the water and lost forever. Please help us. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Don't know how really to change the tone there, moving on to the tweets. I'm not going to try, but there are a lot of tweets. If you do a search for Panther Parade, a lot of them are pictures. They don't really, they're not really useful in our live stream context, but do go on Twitter and have a look at those pictures from the parade, or the assembly really, because the parade doesn't seem to have started yet. However, there's a couple of tweets I wanted to share with you. One of our sister unions, the Writers Guild, is sending us their solidarity at the Panther Parade, and also reminding us of the Twitter handle Excluded UK for all of those that had no support whatsoever, as mentioned by Amy before. Now, Laura Boyd is asking for any Scots taking part in the Panther Parade today to DM her. So DM Laura if you're a Scot taking part. And then there's this one, I'm puzzled by it, but maybe some of you in the comments can explain. KJ Barham says, off to fight our jobs at the Panther Parade, we make events. And then there's a picture saying, breeding is important, but lighting is everything. I'm not sure I understand that, but I'm intrigued by it. So by all means, please do explain it to me. Moving on to our next speaker, Julie Coombe, who's an actor and writer. She will be giving the Scottish slant on the current crisis, highlighting the differences in the Scottish government's response to the creative industries. Thank you, Julie.
Hello there. Hello. Am I broadcasting? Morning all. I'm Julie Coombe. I'm an actor and writer and have been a viable freelancer for almost 30 years. I'm also a proud member of the Scottish National Committee. I'm delighted to be here with my equity colleagues. I've been moved and I've really enjoyed the speeches so far. I'd like to thank everybody for that. And it's wonderful to have the opportunity to speak to you all on how things are above Hadrian's Wall. Now, March 2020 saw the creative industries in Scotland, as in the rest of the UK, come to a COVID-19 induced emergency stop. I mean, the optimistic cries of we'll be back in 6 weeks, or gave way to we'll be back by summer, then surely by Panto, and now they've faded out. They're just cries. I mean, we watched in disbelief as one important date in the arts calendar after another was cancelled. I honestly never thought I would see the day of an Edinburgh with no international festival or no fringe. I have to say, as an Edinburgh resident, it's been weird. It has been quite strange. I know the fringe will be back. I know the international festival will be back, but in what state? That's what worries me. But sadly, the unimaginable became a reality. Our industry was pretty much obliterated. we entered the unprecedented age. Unprecedented. Honestly, if I never hear that word again, it will be too soon. So this morning, I'd like to, if I may, speak specifically about Scotland. Forgive me if I'm telling you things that you already know. But in terms of a government response, it has been more positive up here than in some other areas of the UK, but there is still more to do, a lot more to do. With the Chancellor's announcement of the self-employed income support scheme came relief, but also came panic. In fact, a bit more panic through our industry. It was not a one-size-fits-all solution. Lots and lots of people were left out. But there were people who hadn't been self-employed for the requisite time, people who weren't self-employed enough. Social media was quite a distressing place at that time because friends worried about how to keep body and soul together. I mean, personally, I had phone calls from texts, emails from friends with proper jobs who were concerned for me because both my husband and myself are in the creative industries. So we were sort of, we were double whammied actually. I know a lot of similar couples who have families. I mean, people were being punished for their career choices, and that's just not fair. And also, all of our side hustles were disappearing. So there was in fact nothing. So I can understand why my friends who had been sensible enough to get proper jobs way back were worried about us. So what is different up here in Scotland? Well, one of the best government responses was the newly self-employed fund, and that was aimed at people who fell through the cracks of the Westminster scheme. This was accessed through local government. I'm not sure of the ins and outs of it, but it worked as an example of, it worked. And it was an example of specific support for people in the creative industries. Granted, it didn't seal all the cracks that people could slip through, but it was very welcome. We're very grateful for it. We need more of this targeted thinking. At the risk of sounding a little political, it's often been the case during this pandemic that the Scottish Government were slightly ahead of the curve with their £10 million emergency fund for the creative industries. This was distributed by Creative Scotland and was a vital injection of cash for our core funded organisations and life support for companies and buildings, but with no distinct provision for freelancers. That was something that worried many members greatly, and with job prospects pretty non-existent and a finite number of hardship funds. So when Westminster announced their financial support for the arts, the Scottish Government were very keen to work with and be advised by the creative industry unions as to how our share of the funds best be allocated. So, good, that was a plus. We as a committee felt very strongly that some of the money should go directly to freelancers. This was and is the message from our members. To make a genuine difference and provide a safety net, some of that money has to be distributed from the bottom up. We all agree that buildings and organisations need to be supported. That's very important, but it's vitally important that people are not forgotten or overlooked, because that they seem to have been forgotten and overlooked by many of the government responses. So, Equity attended a meeting with the Culture Secretary, Fiona Hislop, to discuss the way forward. I mean, we realise in Scotland how lucky we are to have access to the Parliament and direct contact with the government. I'm not sure how easy it is to breach the defences of Downing Street. But other unions from the creative industries and arts organisations were also party to these discussions, and Creative Scotland were once again charged with distribution. So here's the thing, like in Wales, there is money set aside for freelancers. There's a £5 million pot of money. In short, that's a good thing. It is a good thing. It's at least an attempt to get money directly to freelancers. The money will be distributed through Creative Scotland, but it will be distributed not directly by them. They're going to be working with some partner organisations. I'm not sure how far that process has gone. I know that there's been a call out for tenders for these partner organisations to work with Creative Scotland. So it sort of makes everything smaller, and there'll be more sort of directed places that freelancers will be able to, once these organisations have been appointed, freelancers will be able to apply, and I think they will be able to apply from next month, from October onwards. Now, the only, I think this is brilliant, but there's always a but. I think it would be excellent if we could find a way to monitor where this money goes. And I think it's important that we do, really, really important. And as yet, the eligibility criteria are unclear, but I strongly believe that our members shouldn't be made to justify their existence to get a grant. At this moment in time, they should be merely helped to exist. There is a suggestion that the Culture Secretary, Fiona Hislop, would like to set up a culture panel. I think we must press for this, and we must hold her to this. And perhaps this culture panel could be the mechanism through which we monitor the freelancer funds. I was very excited to hear what Amy was saying, Amy Wilgus was saying earlier on about what's happening in Wales, because I personally cannot help but think that the fairest way forward for freelancers is a temporary, universal, basic income. I won't pretend that I'm clever enough to know how to put that into practice. I'll leave that to people who are good at sums and good at organising things. But I really do think it would be the fairest way to help people ride out this storm. I mean, I stress this is just my personal opinion, but it does worry me that we're now seeing redundancies across theatres in Scotland. The government needs to act to prevent wider loss of livelihoods. As in Wales, us in Scotland are very, very grateful for the extra measures from the Scottish Government, but we need more. We do. I mean, I worry that friends and colleagues won't survive this hardship. If we're not careful, vast experience and huge talent will be lost to our industry. There is not one person in the creative industries who doesn't want to work. Lots of us simply can't. I mean, the issue in Scotland, as in Wales, and I hear from Stephen, Northern Ireland, the government won't let theatres open. So where do we go from here? Well, Equity is continuing to lobby the government on our behalf, working with our colleagues in the Musicians Union, in BEC2 and in the Writers Guild. And a lot of that current lobbying is around pantomime. Oh yes, it is. A Christmas without panto, did we ever think we would see that? So Equity at the moment is lobbying the government for assistance to help practitioners come up with creative solutions to stage panto. Maybe a drive-in panto, maybe some street theatre scenes from panto, you know, the type of thing. Basically, whatever's viable. We are viable. Our jobs are viable. It's only in the opinion of the government that they are not. Please see sense. Support the 4 pillars. Help us to survive and ultimately thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. I was on mute. That hadn't happened yet. I was on mute again, but that doesn't really matter because what we're doing now is we're moving to the parade. They're off. So let me just share a few images. There we are. Those who don't know London, they are walking. This is near Piccadilly Circus, so they're walking south towards Parliament Square. Actors there. Without us, you are not seen. Yes. If you are on the parade. Obviously, you can't hear us if you're on the parade. You're busy with other stuff, but hopefully some of them are tweeting us. I know a lot of them are sharing pictures, lots of equity flags. Great to have that running in the background. We'll be going back to the march throughout the live stream, and maybe we'll catch them as they reach Parliament Square. A few comments that we've had through. Lindsay Pugh on Facebook. Thank you for this live stream. After 20 years of singing and DJing, I've been out of work since March, and it's had a devastating effect on my entertainment business and income for my family. Chris Ride, also on Facebook. A great show, everyone. And later today, lots of theatres, including my own, at #Savoy Monmouth, that's the Savoy Theatre in Monmouth, Wales, will be lit up red to highlight the crisis we are in. Here in Wales, we have had no indication whatsoever of when we can reopen. We are dying a slow death. A few more messages. The Musicians Union, our other sister union, is sending us their support. And Freelancers Make Theatre Work, a campaign group for freelancers in our industry, are sharing a picture with some choice comments on placards that I don't think I can read, but I would, I would welcome you or encourage you to go to Twitter, at Freelancers Make, and you'll see what these two participants have to say. I'll leave it at that and move on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Philip Simon. He's a stand-up comedian from Hertfordshire, and he'll be talking about how comedians have been affected by the pandemic and what they've done to remain viable, sadly the buzzword at the moment. Over to you, Philip.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Philip Simon, and I am a member of the Equity Comedians Network, a group that was established a few years ago to better protect those of our members who work not just in variety, but specifically in the comedy industry, like me. I'm a full-time stand-up comedian, or at least I was until March of this year, when I became a supply teacher in a home school that I imagine Ofsted would classify as inadequate. I've worked in the arts since my mid-teens, since even before graduating from the Guildford School of Acting in 2001. I have a degree in acting. I'm not doing this job out of some frivolous, whimsical need for attention. I'm doing it because it's what I've always wanted to do, what I've trained to do. I've invested time and money into ensuring I do it well and professionally, just like any other industry professional. And I love it more than anything I've ever done. I mainly stopped acting after spending too much time in the company of my alter ego, Daddy Pig. And for the past 5 years, my income has been almost exclusively from comedy, either through live gigging in the UK or abroad, or working on various projects for television or radio. I've worked hard, I've earned a living, and I've paid my taxes. And when 2020 started, things looked pretty good. So imagine a situation when, in just a matter of days, gig after gig after gig is tentatively postponed, indefinitely postponed, and then ultimately cancelled, because that's what's happened to me and thousands of comedians. We couldn't be furloughed. We didn't have employers who could let us work from home, safe in the knowledge it was just a matter of time until we could pick up where we left off. We were on our own. And most of us did what we do best. We got creative. You couldn't come to comedy, so we'd bring the comedy to you online. So whilst everyone else was using Zoom to catch up with friends and family, or hosting meetings that ironically showed us how redundant offices might become, comedians were pioneering its use along with other streaming platforms to entertain people stuck in their own homes. Online gigs were soon very much a staple part of the comedy landscape. Assuming lockdown would only be a matter of weeks, it seemed bearable that sometimes the income from these gigs was far lower than actual live comedy. But that's the thing about a vocational profession. It's not always about the money. Often it's about the art. But sometimes it's about the money. And once it was clear COVID wasn't going away, financial support was made available to many freelancers, myself included, through the Self-Employment Income Support Scheme. Of course, this was appreciated, but it wasn't nearly enough. First 80% and then 70% of my average monthly profits. And we've recently heard there may shortly be another payment of just 20%. 20% to live on for 3 months. From a government whose own leader openly admits he can't survive on £150,000 a year. Now, I may sound ungrateful, but I'm not. I'm frustrated, but I'm not ungrateful, because I know how lucky I am to have been getting anything. We've already heard that Equity established that just under half of their members received nothing, no financial support whatsoever. People who for years have paid into a system that now does not have their backs. We were grateful to hear the Minister for Culture, Media and Sport, Oliver Dowden's promise of a £1.57 billion injection into the arts. Though, along with the Arts Council's Cultural Recovery Fund, it wasn't likely that individuals would benefit from this support, only venues. It's great news for the arts centres and comedy clubs that will hopefully once again thrive once lockdown is over, but I wonder how long they'll survive when there are no artists to employ. By failing to support individuals, the government is failing to protect the arts that this country is famous for. I want to share with you a tweet from a comedian called Matt Kirshen. I've paraphrased it slightly because we're before the watershed, but he says, Rishi Sunak is right. Screw the arts. They add nothing. Many a time I've been somewhere else in the world and been told, man, I love Britain. You guys are such a robust banking industry. Or I can't wait to visit London and see Lloyds do some underwriting live. Hashtag unviable. The arts, of which comedy is a vital part, brings so much to the UK, like culture and tourism. We put billions into the economy and do wonders for mental health. So why aren't we being better cared for? Now, of course, I'm very aware we are not alone in this, that ours is just one of many professions hit by the pandemic, nor are we the only industry facing extinction. And make no mistake, that is what's at risk here. An industry-wide survey led by the Live Comedian Association, carried out during lockdown, had some particularly disturbing finds, with only 17% of promoters expecting to be running the same number of gigs after lockdown as they did beforehand. 17%. And a third of comedy venues expecting to face closure by the end of the year, and 78% within the next year. So it's great that venues will see some of that £1.57 billion, but what we also learned was that individuals need more support, with over 3/4 of performers saying they had earned less than 5% of their pre-pandemic estimated income from online performances. And this was my experience also. Remember those gigs that seemed to fly out of my diary? They weren't just gigs, they were income, my livelihood. I have a family, a mortgage, bills. I was sharing the homeschooling and childcare duties with my wife, who was also working from home, so I couldn't just head off and look for alternative work. I needed to be home-based and working as much as possible in the comedy world so that when all this is over, I'd have some level of career to go back to. So that's what I did. And as I look around the comedy industry, I was not alone. Comedians are putting themselves out there on a daily basis, entertaining audiences desperate for some light relief to distract them from the realities of life under lockdown. There's lots of talk at the moment about people going back to work. Well, comedians never stopped working. We stopped earning, but we did not stop working. We may not have continued performing in the comedy clubs, the local pubs, the village halls across the UK. We may not have continued contributing to local communities and economies as we travel the length and breadth of the country. But we and all of our colleagues in the arts never stopped doing what we do best. And now we face the humiliation of being told our entire industry isn't viable, that nothing we've done up to this point matters, that members of our industry might not be supported if they choose to continue with their vocation. A vocation we've invested time and resources into, not to mention the billions we contribute every year in taxes. Comedy isn't viable. Not only have the last few months proved it's viable and sustainable, but we've also shown there's a need and a hunger for what we provide. Laughter. It may not really be the best medicine, as any good Jewish boy will tell you, that's chicken soup. But in the absence of a viable vaccine, we think laughter's a pretty good place to start. Thank you very much for supporting the arts and live comedy. And Giovanni, I'll hand back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Philip. Philip was mentioning some stats, and those that he about live comedy, and they can be found if you go to livecomedyassociation.co.uk if you want to read a bit more about that. And we've had some support from Prospect, who are of which Beck2, the co-organizer, is the part. And it's not only the General Secretary that sent us a picture of support, but he's there with ITV2 presenter Jodie McCallum. So she's sending all the participants her good wishes ahead of a big day for lobbying the government of the lack of support for freelancers and the arts. Okay, we have one more speaker lined up for you, and it's Rudy Ablett. And Rudy is a 24-year-old actor and drama school graduate from Leicestershire. Today, she'll be speaking on behalf of the Equity Young Members Committee, of which she's a member, but also on behalf of all arts professionals under the age of 30. Over to you, Ruby.
Hi, can you hear me, Giovanni? Thanks
Yes.
very much, Giovanni, thank you. My name's Ruby Ablett. I am 24 years old, and I am a member of the Equity Young Members Committee. Today, I'm here to speak on behalf of all Equity's young members. I cannot imagine how it must feel to have spent your lifetime working in this industry only to have it put on pause and then left to rot. For young arts professionals like myself, the situation is totally different. We've barely begun to work, and now there is no work. For recent graduates, it honestly feels like I have trained for an industry that does not exist. We're all at the beginning of our careers. Some of us are students or graduates. Some of us are taxpayers. Some have just started a family, they have a mortgage, and many more, myself included, would just like to get on the housing ladder. We are actors, directors, designers, stage managers, costume makers, sound engineers, set designers, choreographers, clowns, comedians, and lots of us do a little bit of everything. But what we have in common is that when we committed to a career in the arts, we knew it was going to be hard. Young arts professionals like myself are willing to work hard and contribute to our £112 billion industry, but without immediate action, the future of that industry is bleak. It will not be safe to open arts venues for some time. But in the meantime, the government cannot just pretend we don't exist and assume we'll be in a fit state to open when they say so. Without targeted financial support, we will not be in a position to open at all. Not in 6 months' time and not in a year's time. And that is why we need the government to implement Equity's 4-pillar plan, a plan that has been specifically designed by people in our industry to keep our industry alive so that when it is safe for us to return to work, we have an industry to go back to. It's not just the arts industry itself that needs government support. I don't need to tell anybody listening who works within the arts that arts professionals themselves are in personal financial crisis. For the youngest workers like myself, many of whom are more likely to live week to week, this is honestly a really frightening place to be. Our industry is precarious. We work multiple jobs a year, we have unpredictable wages, and we have no permanent colleagues. It can be lonely. It can be a really lonely place at the best of times. Our work and our social lives are heavily intertwined, and at the moment, we have little of either. Now, I think I know what people outside of the arts might be thinking. There are other jobs we could all be doing during this downtime while the arts are down. That's true. And let me say this for anyone that does not work in the arts professionals are not afraid to work in other industries. On the contrary, most of us do it on a regular basis to supplement the wages we earn from our creative careers. The majority of my peers, myself included, have worked as waiters, teachers, ushers, retail assistants, receptionists, and all of these jobs have been reduced or eliminated completely by Corona. Despite this, some of us have managed to find non-arts jobs during the crisis. I have friends who now work as supermarket assistants, delivery drivers, call centre workers. But these job openings are few and far between. And as unemployment rises, they will become totally oversubscribed. So you'd think, with no work in our industry and limited work in the industries surrounding it, that we would be the targets of the government's personal financial support schemes. However, we know that's not the case. Not for 40% of equity members who have received nothing at all, and certainly not for young members. I graduated in 2017, so I was just eligible for the Self-Employment Income Support Scheme. But anyone who graduated in 2018, 19 or 20 was ineligible. The scheme also excludes anyone who earned more from PAYE jobs than they did from their self-employment. Many of my peers who are just finding their feet in the arts industry fell through this crack. Many more received a grant that would barely cover a week's food shop. For those of us who had those PAYE jobs when the crisis hit, the furlough scheme offered some support. However, for most of us, not anymore. As the youngest and newest workers, often on 0 hours contracts, we were the first to be laid off. In the last few months alone, we have seen the National Theatre lay off 400 casual staff, the South Bank Centre 400, Nimax 130, Cameron Mackintosh 200, and ATG 1,200 staff gone. I don't have the figures, I don't know if they're out there, but having worked for one of those organisations, I would not be surprised to find that the majority of those now redundant workers are under the age of 30. And that is just front of house theatre jobs. They are the tip of the iceberg. Many young arts workers, unable to afford their rent, have been uprooted from their day-to-day lives and now rely on the financial support of their parents. For those without that incredible privilege, they will simply be priced out of the arts industry. Our generation is the most diverse to enter this industry. We are at the forefront of the movements that challenge established practice and initiate change. This industry will be a less colourful, less inclusive and less diverse place without us, not to mention how many working class and minority voices will be lost because they simply cannot afford to stay. In the last few months, there have been glimmers of hope as some TV and theatre has returned in some capacity. Whilst I commend this, and I honestly commend the organisations who have pioneered a new way of working in these strange times, do not be fooled. It is not business as usual for the rest of us, and definitely not for young workers. Already, I see a worrying trend of famous faces appearing in reruns and week-long one-off events. Again, this is brilliant, and I am so glad that those organisations have worked to make art happen in this time. But if we do not receive the support we need, our future will look much the same. It will be familiar faces, familiar stories. It will be driven by the need to put bums on seats. And I doubt that those of us at the start of our careers with the least experience and the least industry connections will be the ones invited to the table. Cities in the UK, all across the UK, are in ruins without their cultural centres. We can see this from the number of job losses and liquidations in industries like retail and hospitality. The arts are critical to every aspect of British society, from tourism to mental health. We are so much more than a niche pastime, and to have been called unviable is a gross insult. If our government do not provide the support we need industry-wide, as well as a support system for the individuals who make this industry what it is, there will be no arts industry to go back to. Calling us unviable will not make us go away. We are skilled, hard-working taxpayers who contribute to one of the biggest and most lucrative industries in the UK. We must be given the support we need. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruby. That was ace. That was really powerful. We'll be playing you out with a video that is getting ready. Just to give you a sense of what's happening live, they're now on not on Parliament Square, on Trafalgar Square, and two pantos seem to have taken over one of the plinths. So, but you'll find out more about what's happening live after we've seen the video, because we'll be going live, and you'll get a live stream of the parade. Before we do so, though, I want to play you out with a video. Melanie LeBarry, who's one of our counsellors and an actor, will be sharing her experiences. Thank you.
Extremely isolated and very, very vulnerable if it wasn't for the structures and organization provided by. Now, I've been a West End Deaf many times, and even when I'm not, because of my age and experience, I'm often used as a port of call for information and support. But being a deaf can be a pretty lonely and daunting experience, even when things are running normally. In this strange time, led and supported by our now General Secretary, Paul Fleming, who looked after the West End Deafs at the time, we formed a WhatsApp group. Now, it's a very, very simple solution. However, it meant that we can have up-to-the-minute and almost instant communication with each other, so that when the time came for urgent, coordinated action, we were able to respond quite quickly, provide information to our casts about the action of our union, and also feedback to the union, any suggestions from our cast about what they wanted to see happen next. For example, the West End Deps were able to organize a major email campaign, and through increased social media engagement, we drew attention to petitions and other calls to action, which led to members of our industry being included in the self-employed income support scheme. Additionally, in entering into this strange period of suspension, We were able to give input into the discussions with managers and producers regarding the future of some of our shows. We made a direct contribution to the union's response to both the government and to the managers. We stuck together and we made things happen. Our West End Depths continued to stand in solidarity with the union, with approximately 60% of our workers falling through the gaps of any initial support, with doubts about our inclusion in any additional income scheme, and with no clear government guidelines about how and when we can get up and running again. There is still so much more that we have to do. We're now led by Amy Dawson, and we carry on working towards getting results, not just for ourselves as artists, and not just for our own show, but for the West End as a whole. The union has strongly held us together and continues to be very transparent in their workings. I am a proud member of Equity. I hope you are too.
Thank you, Melanie. If you're like me, you may have had some sound problems. Hopefully you didn't. If you did, though, apologies, and fun that we were good with the live speeches and may have had problems with the video, so apologies for that. But I think Melanie's message came through all the same. Before we switch over to the live feed, a couple of things. I know I said before that one of the placards I couldn't possibly read because it had a choice comment, but maybe you've seen it by now. There is one I've just seen now that I think I can share, and that I think epitomizes both what we're asking for and also the humor, the sense of humor that in spite of everything we haven't lost. And it has a question, and the question is, are you behind us? So thanks to whoever came up with that. I'd credit you if I knew who you were. So thank you. Thank you for everyone who's been watching. Thank you for everyone who hasn't been watching but is out there in central London, and to everyone else who's supporting us in any way, whether you're part of the industry or not, because obviously we're looking for outside support as well. I think a lot of the speakers have highlighted the how we contribute to life, social life in general, and I know that we've had a lot of support from people not in our industry. That's all there is to say really now, other than to thank all our speakers for giving their time and their expertise, their passion. And yeah, that's all really that I've got to say. Thank you for watching, and we're gonna switch over now to the live stream. As I said, they're on Trafalgar Square on the way to Parliament Square, and we'll see what happens there. Thank you very much. Bye, everyone. I'm sure it'll be ready very soon. Bye.
I'm so thrilled to be part of this. Standing outside Downing Street right now, waiting for Boris to come out, and I'm hoping that he's going to get a big pantomime boo as Panto villain. It's just extraordinary to be here, to see all these wonderful people all protesting about the terrible treatment of our industry, and to see the dames leading the march, just like the good old days of gay pride, when, you know, if you want something done, ask a drag queen. They've all been fantastic. The costumes are great, and we're doing what we do best. We're colourful, we're loud, we're fabulous, we're in town, and we're not going anywhere. So I just want to send love and solidarity to everyone who's struggling so much at the moment. We will be back, we will be stronger, but we need proper support now. We need the excluded to be given money. We need the self-employed income support scheme to be extended. We need proper provision for those who missed out. And we need a proper date. We need proper instruction about how we're going to get back on our feet. None of these silly promises that just end up being rescinded. So it's very joyful today to be here and to see what we can do when we all come together.
Hi everybody. I'm Charlotte Bentz. I'm Equities Low and No Pay and Independent Theatre Organiser. Thank you for bearing with us whilst we finish the rally, the march rather, and get onto the rally. We will be broadcasting the speakers from the rally over this feed, so you'll be able to see what everybody who's been on the streets today has been saying. I want to say a big thank you to all of our speakers who spoke for the union this morning on our online rally. For those of us at home and not on the streets today, I think it was really great to see such a broad spectrum of different experiences and opinions from across the union, and all of them have done a really great job of expressing exactly why the union's four-pillar plan is so important. Now, we have obviously given a shout out to the four-pillar plan before now, but I want to just make sure that everybody knows exactly what the four pillars are and how people can help support the union with that. If you go online to www.equity.org.uk/four-pillar-plan, you will see that we are calling for workforce protection, so making sure that everybody has the support that they need financially, and also from a health and safety perspective, making sure that people are kept safe at work, a safe opening subsidy, so that venues can look after their buildings, look after their companies, make sure that the changes they need to make to their buildings in order to be COVID secure can be possible. The third pillar is protecting infrastructure, looking after those buildings, making sure those buildings still exist when theatre can reopen. And the fourth pillar is equality, making sure that the interests of underrepresented groups, as we consider the return to work, are paramount and included in any plans and decisions that people make when we start to talk about reopening properly. We have had a great response today to the online rally. It's been really great to see so many people engaging on social media with the comments that our speakers have made. We have had some really good tweets in from journalists, from people on the march, and it's been great to see our Panto Dames leading the charge. Thanks everybody again for taking part. Please do go to equity.org.uk/four-pillar-plan. There's a petition that you can sign encouraging the government to support the union's four-pillar strategy. You can also write to your MP, asking your MP to put further pressure on the government on your behalf. There's a template letter that you can use if you want to do so, and that will be really helpful in helping the union's campaign for support for our industries going forward. I'm now going to go back over to the live feed where the speeches will be starting shortly. Thanks everybody for taking part.
Villain performing this year, and I'd only give it 1 star. But I'll tell you what, Rishi, when he leaves number 11 down to Prime Minister's questions today, we'll be behind him, and we'll be reminding him every step of the way about the real stories of the real people who make this industry work. Thank you very much.
Hi, we're looking for the speaker from Excluded UK.
Gentlemen, she's just landed in a great big helicopter. Only looking at from the front. The Annika Hicks! Come on, Annika! Where are you from, darling? Excluded. Excluded UK! Annika!
Hi everyone, I'm going to be really quick because I don't do public speaking, and a lot of people that have given me some recommendations have told me to look at you all as if you've got no clothes on. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I founded Excluded UK along with a couple of people I've never met 4 months ago, to stick up for and represent the 3 million people that have been cast aside by this government. So many industries, so many age groups, so many circumstances, everyone just been denied access to those support schemes. And we've all got one thing in common, that we're all UK taxpayers. Yes. And we need fair, equal support. So thank you everybody for coming today. That's all I'm going to say. If you can support us on social media and on our website, it'd be appreciated. Thanks everyone.
Something really special. Let's have some Nika, ladies and gentlemen. Nika Burns from Nomad. Where are you, darling? Nika Burns.
I am really proud that as a theatre owner and producer and employer, I'm standing here today side by side with our 3 fantastic theatre unions, to BECTU, to Equity and to the MU. There has never been such collaboration between all of those in our industry who can try and make things happen for all of us. And I think that this has been an incredible step for complete unity across all our fantastic industry. So we know that freelancers have fallen through the cracks. I don't think it was intended that you would, but here we are facing panto time, one of the highest times of employment for everybody. This is about jobs, and we want to stand proud and we want to earn our living. We are not here holding our hand out to the state because we want to. We're here because freelancers have been denied the opportunity to work and haven't been able to get help from any of the schemes. And I'm saying to the government, we understand it's hard times. We know that we can only go back to work safely, putting in all the government regulations to keep people in the audience safe, to keep our performers safe. But as we can't get all these pantos up across Christmas, as families are unable to enjoy this incredible tradition where many children go to the theatre for the first time and then want to come back forever, we are asking for help that those that simply, by accident, in my view, just fell down into those holes. So we're asking you to reconsider and see how our freelancers can be brought back into schemes. And we're also saying, dear government, we are here, we are ready to work as soon as we are allowed to. So I'm saying to you that anyone says to you, oh, you lot, you don't work, you don't want to work, do you? Your answer is, I didn't hear that loud enough. You lot, you actors and performers, you don't really want to work, do you? We want to work, we want to... Finish off, just say that we're ready to make the difference. We're ready to work safely, and we're ready. Everyone in the nation is ready to go back to the theatre, a jolly good laugh and some fine entertainment safely. Thank you. Good night.
It's time for an MP, ladies and gentlemen. One of the hardest, one of the best, Tracy Brayman! We have culture! My pleasure.
Thank you so much, and what an amazing turnout. My name is Tracy Brayman. I'm the MP for Batley and Spen, but I'm also privileged to be the the Shadow Minister for the Cultural Industries. Some of you may know that before I became a Member of Parliament, for over 3 decades, I was an actor and a writer. I absolutely get this crisis that we are in. Can I just say, before I say anything else, the unions have been amazing. And just to say thank you to Beck2, to Equity, to the MU, to Progress, to others. Thank you for the support you've shown your members. Because trade union membership isn't just about when you're in work, it's also about when you're not working and to get that support. So we know, don't we, there are many here from Excluded, from Beck2, from Equity, and it's great to see so many Panto Dames. You're so glorious. I love you all. So we know that you have not had a bean since March. So many people have been excluded from support. And we have been making the case in Parliament again and again and again. And unfortunately, the Chancellor is tin-eared. He is not listening. He won't even commit to meeting us. And when we try and explain that the people who are missing out from support, he always comes back with the fact that if you're declaring £50,000, then you're actually earning 250. I mean, I have no idea what planet Rishi Sunak is on. But certainly as an actor, you might have a good year, but blimey, to earn 250,000, you might win the lottery. We know as well, don't we, that what is deeply frustrating is the reason why our brilliant theatres and community centres and music venues can't open is because there isn't a proper track and trace system in place. And it is the government's incompetence and chaotic, shambolic organisation that means because of that, we can't open. And can I just give a nod to, I think Nika Burns just spoke. You know, those people that are absolutely pushing through, that are determined to employ freelancers, are determined to keep the arts going. I just want to thank you because you are also heroes, because you are employing freelancers, because we know that the government support, and they keep saying 1.57 billion, the government support is going to buildings. And there is a need for those buildings to then employ freelancers. But if you can't open your building, you can't employ freelancers. We need support urgently. And I would encourage everybody here, if you're not a member of a union, join a union. If you're not part of Excluded UK, please check us out on social media. And certainly, we are with you. A date when you can go back to work. It does look like Panto season is off, and so many young working class kids go and see their first theatre when they go to Panto. This is an outrage that this is still in some way we can't make this happen. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for listening, and we are absolutely in your corner. Thank you all. Thank you.
Darling ladies and gentlemen and people of the press, Philippa Charles, head of Bexhill! Come on, Philippa.
Hi, I think it just falls for me really to say a very big thank you to you all. It's been a good day. I think you'll agree it's been a good day. It's been a fun day, and you know, it's given us the opportunity to connect together, something we haven't been able to do for a very long time. So today I've met members of Excluded UK that I haven't met before other than online, and I'm pleased to say that we're joined by members of the All Parliamentary Party Group who have been supported Excluded UK throughout this period of time. You know, I'm very proud that Beck2 has worked with other organisations, other unions throughout this period of time, and we together will not stop until we have highlighted the damage that this government is doing to this industry. So I want to thank all of the staff of Equity, Beck2, Excluded UK for putting this on today. I want to thank all the press who I think have given us a great reception, and hopefully we'll get some brilliant coverage later. I want to thank Excluded UK for also organising something on the same day. I want to thank We Make Events. But I want to thank you all for coming along and making this such a brilliant, fun day today. But most of all, last but certainly not least, I want to thank our brilliant dames for turning up, entertaining us and having such great fun today. It's been brilliant. I hope we can do this again soon, but more importantly, I hope you can all get back to work doing what you love, and we can all come and see you watching what we love, which is live theatre and events. So thank you very much for all your support. We're going to head down now to Parliament Square, where hopefully some more MPs will come out and speak to us as well. But thank you from the bottom of my heart and from all of the unions I know for your support today. Thanks.
It's been far too busy challenging the government directly opposite 10 Downing Street and 9 and 10. Who knows where they are? But listen, it's been a fantastic day. Our dames have been utterly astonishing. Just up for it. The equity flags have been flying. The speeches were amazing. Paul has just given at large opposite 10 Downing Street. Tracy Braben, our very own Tracy Braben, she was there too. Nika Burns, our great heroine. I'm definitely Nika Burns' cape for her to wear. She'll have to put her underpants outside the house. She doesn't know that yet, but I'll be telling her. Thank you so much for joining us, and I will now hand over to our General Secretary-elect, and I hope to see you all very soon. Bye for now.
Yes, thank you everybody for joining here. And what I want to say, and the reason why I wanted to speak very directly to everybody, is to say you're as much a part of this as anybody who's here physically. This is something that has enabled us to access a community of so many hundreds of equity members up and down the country in a way that we wouldn't normally do. And the message that we want to send very, very clearly on this protest, and to your MP, if you can tweet them, Instagram them, email them, pigeon carrier them now, is to say, look, 40% of our members haven't received a penny from the self-employed scheme, and audiences, taxpayers in this country deserve live theatre in a safe way as soon as possible. And that's a message we're trying to send out there. We're criticising the government for their mixed economy of theatre. It is the same thing that's keeping theatres closed, that's meant that children are stuck in university halls, that's meant that teachers are being put at risk in classrooms, the bin men and retail workers haven't been able to support themselves through this crisis. We are part of a bigger struggle here, and it is absolutely amazing to have audience members, Bectu, the MU, ISM, representatives from Excluded UK here along with us, along with all of yourselves on the live stream as well. So thank you, and we'll see you all soon.